Hey guys, it's Patch. This is a video about the actual materials that I used in doing my camper van. If you're looking at doing it yourself, it might give you some ideas about the actual thought process that I've put into it. I did do a lot of research beforehand, so it wasn't kind of while it took me not very long to put it together, there was a lot of research before, so I kind of knew exactly what I wanted to buy. A lot of the hold up actually was waiting for materials that I wanted to come in. But yeah, I'll explain the processes. I didn't want to make this video as I was making it because I'm an amateur doing this. I don't know my stuff. I kind of worked out as I was going, so I didn't want people to watch a video and think, this guy knows what he's doing, I'll do what he's done, and then it's gone wrong, and then you blame me. So this is a kind of retrospective look at what I've done, the order I did it, and what materials I've used to actually do it. Okay, so let's dive in. Okay, so if you've looked at a van, it's got all panels in the back, kind of just like thin plywood panels. If you take them out, it's got all recesses down the sides and in the roof, all the way down. And essentially what I did is fill that with either 200mm or 100mm earth wool, which you can actually see. I just noticed this. These are deadbolts for the side door, and that's one of the recesses. So I'll need to tape that up at some point. So yeah, it's just insulating wool. It's pretty decent. There's all sorts of different types and forums and stuff on the internet, so if you want to do your research, do it. But that's what I chose, just for the versatility. You can stuff it in little holes and stuff, and super simple to use. On top of that, I used Reflectix, which you can kind of see. Yeah, there we go. It's kind of a shiny material, and it looks kind of like bubble wrap over the top of that. And that's all throughout the van, so that's covering everything. And if I shut this side door, if you can hear this, that's the kind of foil of the Reflectix kind of flexing. And I said in a previous video that I'm going to get a thin bit of plywood over the top of that to kind of push that back because it's sagging a bit, which I'm not happy about. The Reflectix is taped in place with foil tape or aluminium tape, and basically the science behind that is that you want a vapor barrier between the insulation and the inside of the van, because if moisture gets into the insulation, it just goes moldy and everyone has a bad day. You don't want that. For the cladding then, I chose to do cladding as opposed to plywood just because I think it looks quite nice. It was a bit of a nightmare to do at some places, around the corners especially. That got a bit emotional. But this cladding is 8mm pine cladding. It's pretty decent, it's pretty flexible, it's quite forgiving at times. And yeah, it's just screwed in with these self-tapping screws. Essentially it's a screw with a drill bit on the head, and you drill it in, and the drill bit drills into the second skin of the van, and that holds it in place. I did have, again, yet more emotional times with those when I came to the roof, but I'll probably mention that in another video. The cladding is actually screwed to battens, so there's vertical battens which are similar to this, just small strips of kind of pine down the ribs of the vehicle, so they're screwed into that as opposed to just straight into the vehicle, because apparently it judders and kind of vibrates a bit if it's just straight into the metal. So that's something to think about as well. The rest of the wood, just open this door to get a bit more light. The rest of the wood in the van is essentially plywood. Super cheap, super easy to use. You can get different thicknesses and stuff. And yeah, it's all stained to protect it against stuff. You can see it's all already a bit battered up, but because it's so cheap, I'm not too worried about not mistreating it, but it getting a bit battered up, because if it needs to get replaced, it can just get replaced nice and easy. The flooring was something I thought a lot about. I was going to put some kind of laminate flooring in, but while this doesn't necessarily look that nice, I can cover this up with kind of carpet, and it's designed to fit the van because it's the floor that came with the van, and it's got this lip that runs around the outside. So because I do a bit of water sports stuff like kayaking, if this gets wet, it kind of funnels down, so hopefully water will use these grooves and kind of flow out towards the back if I put a wet kit or anything in here. I'm looking at getting a roof box, but I'm not sure if that's going to be possible to put wet kit in, but if not, I've got this impermeable floor, so that's good. If it didn't have this bathtub kind of effect, water would go to the edge of the laminate and kind of sink in, and you'd have an absolute nightmare because everything would be wet underneath and start getting mouldy, and yeah. Anything that the cladding isn't covering, any kind of spare metal, stuff that's sticking out, I've tried to cover with this carpet. It's called kind of 4-way stretch automotive carpet, and it's pretty forgiving actually. You put it on and you use spray adhesive just on the metal and then on the back of the carpet, and then you stick it on, and then you can kind of stretch it a decent amount actually, and it kind of just covers up all the like crevices and stuff. And basically I've done this whole side door with it, as you just saw. That's why it's flexible, it's nothing rigid on there yet. But yeah, you can just stretch it around all the kind of nooks and crannies and stuff, and it's pretty good actually, so I recommend using that. Just makes it look a lot neater. Some people just do the whole thing in it. It does look pretty good, but I kind of wanted wood on mine. Under the flooring, because there's not really space to put any earthwool or insulation, can't really lift this up, but you can see the edge of the foil tape there. There's the bottom of the van is kind of ribbed, so between the ribs I've put 3mm laminate foam stuff to kind of give some kind of insulation and make the floor level, and then it's Reflectix over the top of that, and then this original floor on top. So that's the kind of insulation in the back as far as that goes, and then the back doors are cladded as well, exactly the same principle as the roof or the ceiling and the walls. And yeah, that's a closer look at the automotive carpet, 4-way stretch carpet. You can get really good. I went through a lot of kind of spray on adhesive getting these on, and the wheel arches are done in that as well. They're pretty difficult because of the shape of them obviously. So that's essentially the skin of the vehicle done. So you've got the earth wall underneath and all the gaps and all the holes, everything. Any gap I could find I just stuffed earth wool in it. Reflectix over the top, which is foil taped around the edges to create a vapor barrier. 8mm ply cladding, tongue and groove cladding all the way around, and then plywood kind of furniture I guess around here. To do the curtain, I'll just talk about this briefly. It's basically essentially just a normal curtain rail you'd have in any house that I've kind of fashioned on. I had to put this extra strip of wood here because the ceiling kind of bows a bit, and this is straight, and then this is just off Amazon, just a set of curtains. There's 2 here, black, and just kind of blocks out the light. I kind of wanted some thermal ones. I'll have to see how cold it gets with these, but they'll do for now. So yeah, that's nice and easy. The bed struts, as I mentioned on a previous video, these are the Scorva IKEA bed struts, which extend to however wide you need them. I really recommend these. Some people say you can get the brackets for them from the shop as well, but we weren't that lucky getting them, so I just kind of fashioned these bits of metal that poke up from this strong bit of timber here, and they hook onto that. One thing I didn't mention actually is these bits of timber are fastened on with riv nuts, which are essentially in the skin of the van. In the double skin there's holes, and you put a riv nut into the hole and then squeeze it, and it creates a thread within that hole. So then you can screw in bolts like this, and it just makes it a lot stronger. So this is absolutely bomber. That can hold a lot of weight. And yeah, that was definitely something I found in a video someone did, and yeah, that's worked really well, rather than just using screws or I don't know, just resting it on plywood or whatever. can create a kind of floating bed, so you've got all this storage underneath, which is what I wanted. We'll just talk about the mattress briefly. I can't really take it out. This is just a mattress covering that I made, but there's a website that my girlfriend found. I'll put a link down in the description if I can find it, and they essentially custom cut foam blocks for you. So we just said what depth we wanted, width and length, and then how kind of firm. There's a guide on there about what they're used for, and we just picked one that was used for mattresses. Yeah, it came all rolled up and then let it out, and it kind of fit perfectly. I later cut it down because I changed my mind. But yeah, so that was really good. I'll put the link down if you're struggling to find a decent place to get a mattress. Would recommend. And then very quickly, just to do any furniture you might want to do, I'd recommend just kind of making a rudimentary frame out of kind of battens like this. I'm not sure, these are 1.5 inches by 1/2 inch or something like that. Make that and then just coat it in the plywood here. Super simple, you don't have to be an expert or anything. Goes together nicely and dead strong. So yeah, definitely recommend that. And any hinges you have, I personally chose to go with a piano hinge like this. Essentially it's a long hinge as opposed to having separate ones. They're a little bit more flexible, and it just kind of gives a nice strong hinge. So if you have separate ones and you don't do it kind of perfectly, it can be a bit lopsided and not quite work together. So I'd recommend, so I've got under the table that folds up, and under here I've got piano hinges. Okay, so that's a rough overview of the materials that I used in actually doing it. Like I mentioned, I'm no expert. I've just kind of figured it out from looking at videos and researching on the internet, etc, etc. But it's worked out pretty well so far. If you've got any points or queries or comments, questions, etc, please put them down in the comments. I'm happy to answer what I can. I can recommend other channels, Anth and Amy, which are a couple that have done up or are doing up a Sprinter. They're really good, really detailed videos. And Greg Virgo, which I used a lot. He's like a big expert and does really good kind of walkthroughs of kind of electrics and all sorts of bits about doing vans. So I recommend those two channels especially. So yeah, please comment below, please like and subscribe, I really appreciate it. And wait out for the next video, hopefully when I'll be using this in some capacity out and about. Cheers.